Greetings, one and all. Happy Saturday. My name is Angela Asante Amar, stepping in for our wonderful Dr. Unati Makiweni for today's Black Mental Health Matters, streaming live from Ghana, but from the United States of Africa, Facebook and YouTube and GPAN Twitter channels. So welcome to today's show, where we are talking today about COVID-19 and suicidality. I didn't actually know that was even a word, but that is what we are talking about today, following on from our theme of depression and I believe suicide from last week. And I'm very honored and happy to welcome our guests, professionals who are joining us today on the platform. That is the Honorable David Nabois, Director General of Nabois International Institute for Mental Health Studies in Africa, or NIMSA, and our Dr. Olushola Olowukere, who is a consultant psychiatrist, a forensic medical examiner, CEO of Grey Insights and Health Hub 360, and also a mental health professional in behavioral medicine. So welcome, gentlemen, to the platform. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. We're doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well too, thank you. And you, Honorable David?
I'm doing good. To the good people of Africa and my only mentor and you, the host. I'm most grateful.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to everybody. Like I said, I'm stepping in for the wonderful Dr. Unati Makiweni for today. So let's hope that we can continue in the usual standard that we expect to have on the show. So today, as I said, continuing on with this theme of depression, but specifically looking today at the impact of COVID-19 on suicide and suicidality as we talk about it. So we know that COVID-19, it knocked us for six. It knocked most of us for six. And it's still here, unfortunately, in certain parts. It's still here. And so people who had mental issues, mental conditions beforehand, they probably still have those. They may have been exacerbated, but also new symptoms are arising based on the unfortunate, the uncertain circumstances we find ourselves in now. And I understand that there's been a spike in depression, substance abuse, domestic violence, anxiety, and suicides, which is what we're talking about today. So I think maybe we'll just start with like a general opener for today. So I guess simply put, what are the things, perhaps I'll start with you, Dr. Shola, what are the things that you yourself have been seeing in terms of maybe the suicide rates or depression, and how you see that as a direct impact of the conditions that have been imposed as a result of COVID-19?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again here today. It's a wonderful platform, and every time I get called, it's an honor to turn up and just continue contributing my quota and what we're doing together. So regarding the topic, COVID-19 and suicidality, it's been a very challenging year for everyone, difficult one. Where I am, we've just gone into lockdown the second time from Thursday this week. And it's difficult for a lot of people, a lot of uncertainty about economy, about finance, about their health and all. But if you narrow it down to my own client group, who are people living with mental disorders, I work as a community consultant, and I have a good, reasonable caseload of up to 1,000 people who are already who have existing diagnosis of mental disorder, which ranges from the mild anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, PTSD likes. And as a psychiatrist, what I tell them when I see them is, oh, there is hope. I tell them, do not socially isolate yourself, interact with people, engage in activities, do exercise, go out there and do things. But since the beginning of this year, is It's been like an egg on my face. I can't tell them to go because we've been told to lock down. You see, we've been told to not socially interact, arms face in space. We should maintain our space from the other people, and just to reduce this. These are valid advice, but for people who rely on day-to-day interaction with people to manage their problems, for people who rely in the social gatherings, the networking, the church functions, the parties and things to cope with their problems, it's been extremely difficult. So they've been told to remain in the four walls of their homes and suffer in silence, so to say. So people have reacted in various ways, and this has increased the suicidality in a lot of people. You know, suicide as a process, it doesn't just end up with suicide. It comes with the thoughts, feeling of hopelessness, worthlessness. I'm not alone, nobody cares, and then it gradually progresses. So the impact of COVID-19, most especially, is around the social isolation part of things, and the effect is having and continues to have on a lot of people, increasing anxiety and anxiety around, would I catch it? Will my family catch it? Would what is, there's no treatment? You know, it's all up in the air, and this is driving up anxiety and loneliness among people, and then leading them to feeling life is no longer worth living. You're muted.
Thank you. Was trying to be too efficient. Thank you, Dr. Shola. Brother David, what would you? I mean, what Dr. Shola is saying. Have you had a similar experience of what you've been seeing of cases, or what has your own experience been of any upturn in depression or suicide?
Thank you very much, and in Ghana here, it's good afternoon to our cherished viewers across the globe. And congrats to Dr. Sola for this wonderful insight into COVID-19 and its related issues. Yes, my case is not different, but when you come to our setting, a lot of things has happened over the period since the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the country. Yes, when we look at our situation now as a country and in my own geographic location, we have been hit hard due to some economic repercussions and also some kind of mental challenges our clients have faced. Cases per what I have, I think there has been so much increase in some of the numbers, but notwithstanding, we still have a lot to do with regards to looking and searching for more. So looking at the topic of COVID-19, depression, substance abuse, domestic violence, anxiety, and suicide, yes, all these aforementioned subtopics are very real during this time. There has been cases of depression, substance abuse has been high, domestic violence, yes, anxiety, and suicide cases. Yes, I just want to pick a few and talk about. When you look at the impact of COVID-19, most people lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. And even those who happen to travel in the diaspora who were feeding families back in Ghana, they have also been hit hard because most of them will call their families, they are under lockdown still, happen to put some one or two things to be able, and even resources sending home or to be sent home are not forthcoming. So you can see that there is a lot of pressure on families now than before. So when you look at the effect on COVID-19 on people, we have the individual, we have the family burden and institutional burdens. So, and all these things are very real. Depressive cases have increased. Now, what some of the youth have resulted to as a result of COVID-19 is to indulging themselves in substance abuse. So you see most of them having these signs and symptoms of substance use disorders. So, and of late, most of them has resulted to using super glue, of which we use for bicycle and lorry tires. They take the vapor and sniff. Some use women's sanitary pad. They boil the content in it and drink the booze so that they forget of whatever they're going through. Others too, they dry fecal matter, they smoke it, and they get booze. So you can see that in terms of COVID-19, there has been great health effects or health issues that our youth and our people who are in formal service are currently going through. And this is a cyclical way of effect, because people who used to, should I say, get to your point to be able for you to render services, now there is a restriction. Even our borders are still closed. And even as I call home, my family, they were looking for farmers to help them on their farm. My siblings are still telling me they haven't gotten the best to work for them, and they're thinking a lot. So I begin to engage them. So this pandemic of today, it has caused a lot of effects in terms of lost jobs, job loss, in terms of fear of unknown as a result of the pandemic. Then our health challenges. Now we have been informed that in Ghana, over 370 people have lost their lives, thereabout. Yeah, 320 as I checked, and now I think it's above that. So, and family members in the diaspora too has been hit. Now we have social distancing, the protocols. Now we don't even observe them. And the political season too has come. So it's also a different thing altogether. Then religious activities. We are all religious by nature. The COVID-19 has come and we have been put in a tight corner. Even our lifestyle has been curtailed. That one alone has put some kind of mental pressure on us. And a lot of people are going through a lot. So I can say in perspective, COVID-19 has never done anything good. It has done a lot of weird, bad effects to us in terms of our economy, in terms of the way our health issues should be, and so on and so forth. So to run it up for this first phase of our discussion, the impact of depression, substance abuse, domestic violence, anxiety, and suicide have been gravely affected, or they have grave effect on us, because these things, or these cases all have risen when you look at of late what we go through. Because I go to my community, I engage women, I engage the youth, and I get to know a lot of them are actually suffering. Even people to even join your Okada and stuff, they are afraid because they think you might. In fact, the day we had a case in my geographic setting, the community slept very late because that kind of fear, the entire community stood still. Nobody was moving until we were able to go by the district protocols and the surveillance team. So a lot is still needs to be done in as much as we move forward. But when we move further, I will be able to talk on some cardinal signs, some cardinal symptoms, some cardinal physical things they will see in somebody who is actually going through some of these things. Some of them, as Dr. earlier on mentioned, you see them losing weight. Some will also increase weight because of the effects of the pandemic. Some resort to this alcohol and those substances that are readily available, weed smoking and stuff. Yes. And the anxiety, yes, fear of unknown, very well now. Suicide, most people have left us because of this, the impact of COVID-19. We wake up, we don't see them because they use any of the lethal means that are available and they go silent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow, that was insightful in terms of the extent or the extreme of what some people are doing as a result. But I always like to provide contrast. So I'm also now in Ghana, but I came from the UK, and some people wherever you are in the world may be able to relate to this. The fact that, for those of us, for instance, we're working in offices, which I was, and the employer, obviously, pending or after lockdown, they said that we can work from home. So that was for some of us, that was a good thing, because a lot of us would complain, oh, this commute, this journey we have to take day in, day out. I don't know what your journey is like to work. It's stressful. Nobody speaks to you. I don't know how many people can relate with this, but there were people that were just getting tired of literally leaving the house every day and doing this journey, because then before you get to the office, you're already tired. So on one hand, for some, that did bring a little relief that they didn't have to do that. You know, they didn't necessarily have to get up and put on their, you know, whatever their work attire is to go into the office. So I think initially that provided some relief. But then you had those of, and I can relate to this, that, okay, that would have been fine if all we were doing was working from home. But then, especially for the parents and the mothers, then we also had to school our children at home. And we're not teachers, as in formally, you know, educate. Yes, we can educate, but I think that was the time where people really do appreciate the skills that the teachers bring, because then you're trying to educate your child and trying to do your work, and the two don't go together. You know, that brought another level of stress. And I just wondered if either of you had either experienced that or seen that as well during that time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So I was just going to say exactly what you just said. To say COVID-19, I think the biggest thing it's done is that it's shattered our routine. We don't, what we've all been used to, we've all had to change. So one is working from home, two, homeschooling, not really going out, being locked down in the house. So all that, if you look at each of them in detail. So working from home and not going out. This is giving, initially it was good, I liked it, but then people could not manage it because they had this false sense that they had more time than they normally have. So is it that they were staying longer in bed or even working more, logging on your computer earlier than your resumption time and staying longer than you should be. Then some probably were making frequent trips to the kitchen to eat and eat because the food is just right there. So they kept going in and out, and then ended up adding a lot of weight. I'm a victim of that as well. You know, so there are a lot of people who pre-COVID probably drink a lot of alcohol or things like that, and they did that out. Now they are drinking inside, and the thing about drinking inside is that it probably feels a lot more comfortable. That you don't have to drive, you don't have to go anywhere. You're just drinking in the house. If you get drunk, you're going to get drunk in the house. So people are drinking a lot more. And with drinks is that if you drink one glass to get high, then with time you might need to drink two, drink three, and want to try new things and all. These are habits people are picking up, and eventually it will affect their physical health. Again, if you think about people who are in domestic relationships, they who are suffering domestic abuse, emotional abuse, or one form of abuse or the other, they've been told to lock down, consequences of COVID-19, and then they are still living under the same roof with the abuser. There's no escape, there's no breakout, there's nothing. So it's difficult on all forms. At the beginning of COVID, when we had the first wave, there was the statistics that came out that alcohol consumption has gone up by 60%, and there were like 3 times more cases of domestic violence, and even people killing each other inside. You know, horrible things has happened as a consequence of this COVID thing. So the conversation has to be continuous, and we need to continue to enlighten ourselves and identify early warning signs and keep raising awareness about this issue. You're muted.
I need to stop doing that. Sorry. I was saying that ties into what Honorable David was saying earlier, or what I'd mentioned in terms of, so there are conditions or issues that people had before, but then in terms of these new symptoms. So what I'm getting from what you said is that it's because we learned new ways of being. And so then these new ways of being, or these new habits, they then had their own new consequences, which we had to deal with. Then just, you know, getting us to have to look at different ways of dealing with that. Honorable David, I wonder, well, you may want to answer the same question that I asked Dr. Shola, but what I was wondering is that when we're looking at, you know, this depression, suicidality, and we're looking at a point in time where basically everybody, the majority of people are under pressure of some form, because we've been forced into a situation that we didn't know necessarily that was coming, and forced to live in a way that we didn't maybe intend on living long term. How do you then tell the difference between those of us who are becoming depressed naturally because, you know, we're completely in the unknown, we're not doing the things maybe that we would like to do, and those of us who are really at this extreme end of being borderline suicidal?
Yes, thank you very much. The most fortunate thing about mental health issues is that when you look at the fundamentals, we have a situation now we call the new normal. And the new normal are standards set by international organizations worldwide. That is fine. But when you look at mental illness, the family members and people who are close to whoever is in challenge or difficulty are the first to identify that this person has problem A or problem B. So I want to just reiterate that Doc was saying that it is about time we look at the differentials, what people are actually going through. That is fine. How do we establish that parent A, parent B, family A, family B, Mr. A, Mr. B is actually in a problem? That is about ensuring that we provide community mental health education to the people to be able to outline some of these signs and symptoms of the conditions we have outlined. When it comes to depression, if you are sad over 2 weeks, this means that you're actually getting depressed. Therefore, you need to seek medical help. If substance abuse, you are over dependent, so and so. Domestic violence, partner abuse. These are the things that we should let the community know. If you are becoming anxious of the pandemic, extreme fear, maybe a little thing, you become phobic and stuff, and probably you have thoughts of killing yourself, ending it all, killing a partner, a family member. We should let them know that these are things that are not normal. But how do we establish this in the community and with people who will always know that for somebody to be able to voice out that I actually have a problem in terms of mental health, it takes over a year in 28% of the population. That is statistics that World Health have. And as it takes over a year for someone to even come and tell us that I have problem A or problem B in terms of my mental health needs, that means that we have a lot of people out there who are in difficulty but will never be open up. So it is about time we let our family members and people who are close to everybody know that signs and symptoms of mental illnesses are very real. And therefore, we should look out for the signs and symptoms of depression among our family members during these difficult times of the new normal. Because if we don't establish that, maybe I have problem when it comes to probably the way I used to conduct my household chores just because of this pandemic, then it becomes a problem because I could be suicidal, and probably if you are not taking care of me or you don't look at me to be able to identify, you still think David is still as how he was before the pandemic. So the best thing is to ensure that we provide the best education to our people at every point in time. So what some of us are doing is to enter into churches, of which we have started. Tell them the signs and symptoms of depression during this new normal time. Tell them the signs and symptoms of someone who is into substance abuse. Tell them what you should look out for in a partner abuse relationship. Tell them what they should look out for in an anxiety person. Tell them what they should look at when someone is becoming suicidal. So in this, they will be able to establish that this person, that person. In fact, a lot of people walk to my office and tell me, Dave, what you just said yesterday at church, I am facing the same problem. And even on my social media platform, some of them I post some of my posts in terms of the signs and symptoms of specific conditions of which they are going through. Now the person will just walk to me, now what you have posted, I am having about 7 out of the 10. So what is the big deal that this person might not be suffering? So it is about availability, accessibility of mental health services. And we, the professionals, must move to the community to ensure that the suffering population get to know what they are actually going through. In fact, at times, it's difficult for somebody who is even suffering to know that I'm suffering. Yes. And I walk somewhere, I do all my observation, I look at somebody over a period of maybe a week or 2 consecutive times. Then I just walk to you and tell you that upon my initial observation, I see that you are facing a challenge. And even your conversation, the way you coordinate your communication, I get to know that there's distortion, there is no flow, and there is no meaning. Therefore, there might be something wrong somewhere. So family members should be able to look out for some of these things during this new normal, because you could have even a breadwinner, because he's stuck in a tight corner, going through this kind of depressive signs and symptoms, and it will even be difficult for him to open up and tell you that I have a problem, because he's thinking that as for the men, they will always be hiding at the corner. Women always do for you to even know. Yes, they want to show that I am strong, I can manage it. But at times you get to a point when that threshold reaches, you cannot go anymore. So the best thing is that these platforms as we have today, in terms of we providing talk to people, presenting to them that these things are with us in the family and they are not far from us. Even we, those who are the professionals, are not immune to suffering from some of these conditions. Therefore, it is good that we talk about signs and symptoms of depression. It is good that we let them know that COVID-19 has come and we have a lot of things of such happening. So if you have sense of anxiety, such as extreme fear and so on, not able to, cope with some situations that you might find yourself in, you should be able to come out, see the professionals. And whenever I avail myself in my setting, I see a lot of people walk to me. Some, they feel stigmatized because people will tag them. And I want to tell the general population who have the opportunity to listen to us that no one, no single person is immune to getting any of the mental illnesses. You can get them at any point in time. It is only God that is keeping us now, and we are moving along doing A, B, and C. Someone who is working out there with depression, being into substance abuse, having anxiety disorder, or even who has killed himself, you could be the person who will be killing yourself. People are in debt because of COVID-19. People cannot manage their homes because of COVID-19. And this has put a lot of pressure on them, and they are getting into a lot of these conditions that we are mentioning. People are abusing their children at home because of COVID-19. People are abusing their wives because of COVID-19. But how do you do this? How do you establish this? It's about letting them know that if a family who is having resources is not providing to the wife, is not providing to the children just because of COVID-19, then there could be something wrong somewhere. Maybe the resources are there, but it just feel like neglect. And it is happening. People are hiding behind COVID-19 and they are neglecting their roles and responsibilities. And I'm seeing some of them. And you see them ending up in the domestic violence unit at the police station and stuff. And these are things that also brings about breakages in families and relationships. So I can say they are multifaceted issues that are accumulated, bringing about as a result of COVID-19. But this all happens as a result of what is happening in our brain, the neurotransmitter, the chemicals, and how our brain functions. COVID-19 has just brought a lot of pressures on us. So I know that a time is coming when we pick any of the topics and we want to talk about, we will look at how COVID-19 has actually brought about the should I say, insurgence of substance abuse, how it came about, because most of the youth who are idle now, they find themselves in associations, and those associations are into these things. So they will automatically get into that. How do you get depression as a result of COVID-19? As Doc was saying, probably some of them were actually having some problems in terms of finances, psychological trauma, and those things. COVID-19 has come, it will worsen those things. So we must let them know that these new normal times, even working from home, people are depressed. Doc knows, and he's receiving them, of which I know my setting, we have them. Even some teachers who are at home and they are not going to school, They are even getting depressed because they wish they could have been teaching kids. Someone told me that he didn't even understand why he's taking salary but he's at home. So these things alone self is putting pressure on the person. That David, I don't understand why I take salary but I'm not teaching. You see, they feel like they should be compensated and paid for whatever they are doing. But are we explaining to these teachers why they should be at home because of this pandemic? And if the preventive protocols, how are they observing them? I know in some settings, some teachers have put themselves into educational clubs and they are going about homes educating the public on COVID-19. But in some settings, it is not happening so. So these are the things that we want people to know, that COVID-19 has come, but it is incumbent upon us to look into our fellow family members, our partners, and our relations, and identify that you are actually at the extreme point of these conditions. Therefore, we are urging you that we would like you to see our mental health professionals for support. And that one, because in our COVID-19 pandemic, should I say, education and surveillance and treatment, psychosocial support and initiatives and interventions have been incorporated, especially in Ghana. And some of us were in the forefront of the psychosocial support to these people. Yes, so I know in other settings they are doing a lot to supporting family members and people who have been hit. You see, and most of them even lose their family members as a result of COVID-19. But do we provide psychological first aid to these families in terms of this pandemic? It's a question to us to answer.
Okay.
So we must look at each other and be able to see that you are actually suffering. So that is what we should do now. And we know that the family members are listening to us now. If I, who has been speaking to you, our host, Angela, over a period, you know how I communicate. If the way I articulate my words, if the way I communicate to you has changed, you should be able to know that, David, I can see that something is happening. People leave our platforms on social media, on WhatsApp, and we don't check to know what is happening. Most of them are going through a lot of challenges. We got one on one of our platforms through our continental president. And I can tell you, even you could attest to that a lot of people leave our platforms and we don't check on them. Most of them are depressed. Most of them are into substance abuse. Most of them are anxious. Most of them are thinking about ending it all. So if you have somebody on your platform who used to contribute, but now the person is silent, find out. If he has incidentally left, find out whether it is just an error for him leaving or he deliberately left. Most of them will not come openly. Then when you begin to show them that you are concerned about this thing on that platform, hearing and listening and learning a lot, you won't be able to even know that this person is depressed. And it could be as a result of this pandemic, we're going to, some of them will tell that, Dave, I even lost my job just last week. Absolutely. How to even feed is a problem. So we will be the best people to support these people at this time and be able to identify them and help them access the best mental health services that they could ever have on the continent and around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, there was a lot in what you said. And what I would like to reiterate and reaffirm is that the fact that you said that, mental health professionals, they can experience these conditions as well. And I want to reaffirm that because, I guess it's wrapped up within the stigma of mental health, the stigma of anything, because we've mentioned everything, the stigma around mental health, the stigma around being a victim or somebody that has experienced domestic abuse, the stigma of somebody who has experienced substance abuse or is a practitioner of substance abuse. All these things, we're human. Like you said, this is something to do with our brain. So we're human. So it doesn't mean that just because we are the people that help other people, that we can't experience those things as well. And what I would say is that, yes, so you talked about in terms of trying to access the best mental health services possible. So that is kind of, I put that at one end because it looks like a lot needs to be done before the person even knows or is told that they need to access the mental health services. So just reiterating and bringing back to the fore the importance of what you said about the community, the family members, us all having a role in, quite frankly, being each other's keeper. Like if somebody, like you say, if somebody behavior has changed, it's not like you want to start surveilling them, 24/7, but still, have an eye out for, oh, this, somebody did something or they said something that was really out of character, so before we jump down their throats, we ask the question, wow, that really wasn't like them, is there something under this? Do I need to check on this person? And I love the point you made about, virtually, when you have people, because I've seen this myself, people who contribute a lot, whether it's in a WhatsApp group, a Facebook group, some other virtual platform. One minute you see them, the next minute they're gone. And you in your mind can be thinking, oh, maybe they didn't like the last post or the last subject that was talked about or anything. Meanwhile, you have no idea what's going on with them. So just to be able to send a separate message and just say, look, I saw that you left the platform. Is everything okay? That one, I think, is worth gold. Because like we say, we kind of, when people show us that they are strong and they're always there, you kind of forget that they're human and they do have weakness, and there'll be times where they have off days. So I just want to really thank Honorable David for mentioning that, and to remind us that, everybody, we don't know what everybody's going on, regardless of what looks, what is going on, on the face. There may be, and it could be the most happy, smiley people, So I wanted to mention that. And our sister Unati has taken the time to leave us a comment that the fact that we need to have these conversations every day, which is basically what we're saying. We need to have these conversations every day. As much as COVID-19 has worsened and exacerbated a lot of things, like Sister Unati says, it has shone a torchlight, a light under things that were probably under the radar, or people didn't care about, or they wanted to forget about. And now it's brought those front and center where we can't ignore them anymore. So it is something that I would hope that, because now it's not just a fair few that unfortunately have mental health issues, and all of us will have been going through some kind of experience where we're trying to adjust to the new normal. My real hope is that it would teach more of us to be more compassionate about what is going on for people that we don't know. Dr. Shola, would you agree, or do you want to comment on anything?
Yes, I'm here nodding and agreeing to what David. Well done. I know David very well, and when it starts, it's just all facts, and well done, David. Angela, I was just writing a few things down as David was talking, and I wanted to share a bit of statistics to say, okay, suicide. There is one attempt every 40 seconds, yeah, and that means average globally we're looking about 20 million attempts annually. And then when you're talking about suicidal attempts, you start from thinking about it. Oh, should I do it or not? And then eventually the person attempts it. And out of the about 20 million people globally, about 800,000 people complete it every year. So that's deep. That's a lot of people. And if you look at the wider impact, to say for every suicide, it affects at least 135 people. So direct contact, friends, relatives, caregivers, whatever, a cycle. The research has shown at least 135 people are affected by one suicide. Then it makes me think that when people are going through stuff, why don't they speak up? Why don't they? Why do they suffer inside? Why do they just suffer in silence and then just stay there till they eventually get to that point whereby they just attempt it? Because before they attempt it, they've been thinking about it. A few people are impulsive, they don't think about it, and they just do it. But most people think about it. So during that time when they're thinking about it, why don't they just speak up and they get help? And I've thought about it, and it feeds into what you're saying about stigma. All right. If you look at the Black minority ethnic group, yeah, and how stigma has made a lot of people from that community suffer from mental disorders over a long time. And if you look at stigma, you have the self-perceived stigma, what you think about yourself. And then the community, right? What would people think about me? What would I be taken as a lesser person? Would I be excluded from things? Would they want to talk to me? Would I still have friends that will speak to me? The way, I always say this about stigma, to say the way I can tell someone I've got headache or I've got high blood pressure, why can't people say I'm suffering from anxiety and still feel comfortable about that? You understand what I'm trying to say? If you look at religion, yeah, among the black people, for example, if I may say I'm a choir leader, for example, or prayers, whatever I mentioned, if I'm going through life, because life happens, things happen, and am I able to say it to the next person to that I'm in church that I'm feeling low? When they say Brother Chola, go and read Jeremiah 4 number 4 or something like that, or quote me Bible, rather than what I needed at that time is from Simon support. The Bible verses are good, the prayer is very great, but that wasn't what I needed at the time. Mostly, I wanted someone to tell me it's okay, or they might refer to scriptural verses that will help me, but I just wanted that physical connection or someone to tell me, oh, it will be fine physically. The Bible will tell me, or whatever will tell me, but I wanted someone to say it as well. And so if you look at how that affects, and I'm very proud of what David is doing in churches. I'm trying to do a few of that in the UK as well, to try to educate people and increase the awareness around people, so that when we are going through life, we are able to seek for help at appropriate times to prevent it from degenerating into suicide or things like that. And if I look at my role as a psychiatrist, so psychiatrists were a bit nosy. When I see my patients, even people with existing psychiatric mental disorders, they don't come to you and open up like that. You will still need to ask. So typical professional like what we do, David, we ask about every sphere of their life. How is work? How is relationship? How are you doing with do you still enjoy the things? You ask everything, because you don't know at what point you'll be able to pick up something that will show you that this individual needs help. And that is why, for people listening, we need to be nice to each other. That is, you need to be nice to each other. You need to be kind to each other. If you don't have any good thing to say, you don't need to say anything bad to anybody, so that you don't trigger things. So we need to, because we're looking at the concept of suicide, and very, very rarely people just wake up and do something. Something must have happened, something must have been going on in that head for a long time before they finally get to that point to say, I can't cope anymore. And so what can we do to identify things? We've talked about awareness, we've talked about trying to help people, and then we need to just continually educate ourselves. David did mention something about investment. We can talk about that, because our resources are available. We are saying ask for help, ask for help. There's little the three of us can do. We need the wider public, with wider people to buy into the idea, to help a mental health advocate. They don't have to be psychiatrists, they don't have to be nurse or psychologists to be advocates. They just need to know what is right. They need to equip themselves with knowledge, be knowledgeable, and be nice. Check on someone, give people hope. But hey, if you yourself, you are not standing on 2 feet, you can't help someone that is on the floor. So first of all, we need to be conscious about our own well-being and make sure that you yourself, myself, you and David, we're in a stable place first, so that we can be nice to each other. So it's very, very important that we keep the conversation going, keep talking about it, keep encouraging each other. And one day our government will be that gracious and recognize the impact of mental health, what COVID-19 has done, and can invest a lot of money. The way we invest a lot of money in cancer, in HIV, and for this COVID that has happened since the beginning of this year, over the next 10, 20 years, we are still going to be seeing the impact. Some people have not gone to school. Some kids have not, all the things. It's so, the new normal is not even normal to them. By the time things are getting to normal, it will look abnormal to them. To say, oh, why are we not wearing our face mask again? By the time we get to those points, it's going to be a culture shift, a culture change for people. So this awareness needs to constantly be going. We need to continue this conversation every day, and hopefully we would continue to impact lives and generations.
Wow, that was impactful. I think what I would the things that I'll take from both what Honorable David has said and Dr. Shola you've said is with what Honorable David said again. I repeat it again about, you know, the family really being, you know, in our homes, or family or friends being, if you like, the first informal mental health specialists, you know, to look at, you know, really observe, you know, what is going on with your own people, your loved ones, your nearest and dearest. And Dr. Shola saying that we should be kind to each other. With that, what I would add is that you don't have, no, let me put it another way, that from my own experience of what I've seen, from my own personal experience, you don't have, or mental health issues go hand in hand with emotional health issues. And what I mean by that is when Dr. Shola was saying that, oh, if you rock up in church and you tell somebody you're feeling low and they quote you scripture when that's not what you needed, all you really needed was somebody to listen to you and validate your feelings. So much, this is a conversation for another time, because I could speak for an hour, but when you look at it and you just think about how many experiences you yourself have had of this, where you tell somebody something or you're doing something, you're sad, you're angry, you're crying, any one of those three, and somebody tells you, oh, don't be upset, don't be angry, don't cry, don't be sad. Look at the bright side of life, you know, because we find it difficult to see other people in pain. So in our endeavor, you know, in our intention to help people, we try and say, forget about it, basically. Forget about it, don't worry about it, let's make everything happy. But then what we don't realize is that we're not allowing that person to fully express that emotion. And our emotion, nothing is coincidental. What are emotions? Energy in motion. They have to be felt. They have to move. So if you say someone crying, they're angry, don't do that. What you do is you put a lid on that. And where does that go? It goes inwards. It stays in the body. And we know that we are, you know, we're not one-dimensional beings. We have the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. So, and one will affect the other. Like Dr. Shola was saying, you know, the things we're doing eventually they will catch up with us physically. If our emotions, they don't go out, they stay in and they wreak havoc. You know, there will be certain people that can tell you that which emotion is associated with which organ of your body. I think it was Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, the late Steve Jobs, who supposedly he had a big issue with like anger and resentment especially. Now, it turns out that resentment is associated with, I think it's your pancreas. So what happened to him? Twice he suffered from, and I think eventually died from, cancer of the pancreas. So if our emotions don't go out, they will stay in, and they will literally damage us physically. So I say this to add to what Honorable David and Dr. Shola is saying, is that, you know, yes, there is a need for our professional mental health services, but don't think that you as an individual can't do anything. You know, you are the person closest to the one, whether it's your family or friend, that hopefully can observe, like, oh, something's not right here. And if they're not coming to you, ask them. Because we've just spoken about stigma. We're not going to say, oh, I'm feeling like this because we feel we're going to be judged and criticized, or, you know, made to feel small. We're not going to say anything. So if you spot something, you're thinking, oh, this is not how this person usually behaves, what's going on? Don't just think it here, ask them. For me personally, I think it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. Like Dr. Shola was saying, be inquisitive, be curious. I would rather ask the question and for someone to tell me, oh, don't be silly, no, I'm fine, than to not ask the question and then later on you hear something really bad happen to that person. So yeah, be curious. Let's be curious. So my fellows, Dr. Shola, Honorable David, what can I say? What closing, I guess, messages would you leave for the family in terms of I like what you're saying, Dr. Shola, about actually we need to look after our own health first. So tips on, the things that we can do to do that. And then again, how we can be more mindful of how we can help others maybe manage their own mental health, and especially on this really sensitive line of them becoming suicidal.
David,
Honorable,
go first. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so what I want to say is that in the homes and in our families, we should not just be observers, but we should also be action conscious in terms of whatever we do. What is the responsibility of every family on this earth? The most basic things that you're supposed to provide for your family members as the family head: the food, the shelter, and those basic things. Because we know Maslow's theory of needs. Before you could self-actualize, those basic things should be satisfied. And in every family, before you could see somebody even having that thought of do I matter and those things, it could be possibly the person has been starved for the past 3 days. The family is not giving him food. So the family should look out for how best they can provide the basic necessities of their family members. The problem somebody is going through could be as a result of what is happening within the family. There was a case, I've started suicide investigation in my region here. So I put my numbers to people like insiders. If you hear of some, those reported and unreported, then I link up with the police unit. There was a case I was investigating. So when I got there, the guy was tagged as being a thief. He went to steal a sheep or something. And the whole family called him one early morning and hooted at him. They wanted to send him on the street. But not knowing this guy has the in-law in the house of the family. So you can all see this big disgrace that has befallen this young guy that very morning. He was disgraced before the family. He was disgraced before the in-law, and he was into some politics. So it was like a disgrace to his political party as well. So he just thought it like, why do I exist? He went to the bush, and all that they could find him is that he was hanging on the tree. So who caused it? It's the family members. Because even if your son, your daughter, your brother had gone to steal, which support did you offer him before he went and stole? What mechanisms are you putting in place to bring him out of that situation? That is basically the most fundamental thing. And also our job places, our managers at work. What I've also seen is that you work for almost a year. Your manager does not even know the office you work in, especially those who find themselves with workers who are more. They don't know what you are actually going through. So I want managers to take note of the mental health of their workers. Even if you can take it upon yourself, look at the accounts of your workers. And it is even a primary source for you to look out for people who are going through a lot. Looking at their accounts, what is actually coming at the end of the month? Does it always, and most of the times at the end of the month, sustain you? Most people are depressed because the funds they have at the end of the month cannot sustain them, but we overlook it. So Doc was saying that we should invest. Whose responsibility is it to invest into our mental health? The primary responsibility to invest in our mental health, we know, is our government, but it's every family's responsibility to invest in our mental health as they invest in our national health insurances. You go do your own insurance. So I know, Doc, you'll be looking at this thing as a way of how we'll be able to support our services across the globe. We have a global mental health financing policy or insurance, whereby that mental health insurance policy will look at only mental health issues when you are suffering from them, when you suffer from them, and you subscribe to that policy. So if your family member is diagnosed of having depression and anxiety, and he's having the insurance from the insurance policy holder, we take care of the person 100% free if he needs rehabilitation and so on and so forth. So will we have a lot of people on the streets as vagrants? No. So our burden will reduce. But until we take it upon ourselves to invest into this, it will be hard, because most governments are lackadaisical to seeing that mental health investment will solve most of their problems. And it's also a long way that if mental health financing is not done by respective government, it affects productivity, because most of them are not actually into maybe seeing that this has grave impact on their services they provide. But if you are running a company, I have a small NGO I run, I look at the mental health of my workers. If you are not stable and I send you somewhere to deliver any service, you will not be able to do. So it brings the productivity that day down. It affects the whole week, the month. That means the returns we will get at the end of the month or at the end of the year is totally affected. So this is what organizations also do. I know Grey Insight is doing a lot. They should contact the psychiatric consultant. You'll be able to take them through subscribing onto this policy, whereby you'll be provided psychological mental health services all year round. I know they provide online services. And when you have this, let's say MTN Ghana, Vodafone Ghana, GoFo's Ghana, or what have you, if you subscribe to Grey Insight psychological support services and you have a worker and they need to support the person will be taken to these services and your productivity will be increased. The family will get to standard and understand the mental health of this person. Thereby, you have conducive working environment, both at home and even at your workplace. Thereby, you'll be enjoying a lot at the end of the day. So we should all also take it upon ourselves, in as much as governments are working at the back door, organizations and individuals should contact. I know Grey Insight will do a lot to take them through, and most of them will subscribe onto their policy to be able to be taken care of. Because mental health, I say that whoever underrate the mental health of any person in the family or anywhere at the workplace is just joking with their life. One person in my community here can hijack the entire community and no move. It could be either killing, it could be either destroying property, or it could be either taking over his own life, and nobody could go to farm that day. You can see how work has been stalled for that moment. What about if we were to invest into that? So we should all look at all this and also observe. We should observe, talk less, be able to open up our feelings. It is better to tell somebody that I am suffering than to die and be buried at the graveyard. Nobody there talks. Nobody there listens to you. All people who are resting there, they have no signs. They have nothing to say again. But the only opportunity we have is our survival now, to make whatever that is bothering us, to whoever is out there, to support us and provide the services that they need. Because I have been on several platforms and we have even been raising money to support the destitute, people who are in the hospitals and they cannot even pay their hospital bills. Yes, but if you don't open up, who knows that you are there, you have a problem? We wouldn't know. And we must also create the opportunities as organizations. And I know our mental health matters, Black Mental Health Matters, will create that opportunity for Grey Insight and whichever organization to collaborate. For Dr. Sola, I know he has been doing a lot to support us in as much as we move into our destination. Because we know in terms of our culture as a Black people, when I grew up in my clan, we were eating together, family. Every evening, if you don't eat, my father will look for you and find out why you don't eat. But now, it is hard even for a father to find out why the son has not eaten, why the daughter has not eaten. And even before we sleep, my father will make sure that everybody with the children sleeps before he sleeps. But now, parents don't care whether your daughter sleeps, whether she goes out or not. So these are the basic things we are missing in our homes that are causing a lot to us. You are a father, you take care of the child, and you don't make sure that the child sleeps at the appropriate time. Set time for the child. Set standards for the child. Let him follow those standards and see whether these issues will not be taken care of. Most of the children are into substance abuse. Their parents even don't know, because I have to go there and even identify them for their parents to know. So are you a responsible parent? No. Yes. So we have a long way to go as parents and as family members, guardians, and even community stakeholders, church leaders, and whoever will get the opportunity to hear us. Mental health and mental illness is with us since history or generation, born and unborn, and it will continue to be with us. But it is better we curtail some of the things happening and be able to provide the better services that we'll ever get. I know I have been following Grey Insight, and in fact, I will not stop any moment from, putting their services onto whoever would like them to support him or her psychologically. I have learned a lot. I've been following them. Doc has been doing a lot. So let's see how best we can all do our widow's mite to wherever we find ourselves. It could not be you are an expert, but it could be you listening to us. We could see somebody and say, "Nah, these things Dr. Sola and Honorable David and our host, Honorable Angela was talking about it." So I think this person could be anxious, could be depressed, could be having suicidal thoughts. So why won't you look for the best opportunity to seek help? Yeah. So we must create the opportunity for them. That is all that I have. And congratulations to you and Dr. Sola. May God bless us all. And I'll be waiting at the back door. I know a lot of people are watching us from across the globe, Ghana, Africa, and the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable David Labua. Dr. Shola, over to you, please.
Right. So I'm going to keep it brief, and I'm going to say that I'm going to just make a comment about the family that David was investigating. I'm sure those family didn't know the outcome was going to be like that when they were doing whatever they were doing to that child, to that person that eventually committed suicide. So I think majority of the work has to still be around awareness and educating our people, letting them know that some of these things are indicators for mental disorder and how to manage things effectively. Because there's still a lot of things to do. People are not aware about the impact of anxiety, low mood, trauma, experience of trauma, and things like that, and consequences of their actions, the way they talk to people. So for me, awareness is still the number one thing that the investment and commitment of everyone needs to go up. And secondly, for caregivers, I always say, God bless caregivers, because the burden of the mental disorder on the caregiver and the family, not even talking about community as a whole, is huge. And if you think about it, that there's someone who is the next of kin, who is the family, mother, father, brother, friend to this person, and the impact they are continually playing in supporting the individual. So they are as important as the psychiatrist, in my own opinion, or as the psychologist. So for the caregivers, my advice to them is that they need to know when to take time out for themselves. As much as they want to continually support their loved ones to be able to function optimally, they need to be aware of their own mental and well-being, because the tendency is for them to be over engrossed and to overdo it, just want to be there, and then neglecting themselves. So it is important that the caregivers, they are doing a wonderful job. They need to pay attention for their own well-being and emotional states as well. Take regular break, take turns, shift it. If you are providing the support this week, if there's someone else that can step in and provide it the following week, and just take turns and make sure that you yourself, you don't neglect your own well-being. It is very, 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 very important. And also amongst us, we just need to continue increasing the awareness. And for people who know me and what I do, money is never the motivation for me. I'm always open to support and create awareness, do this kind of talks, provide psychological first aid, because we can't sit down there, like David said, we can't sit down there and fold our hands and wait for the big investments to come. We just have to continually training people, educating ourselves, and making impact. And one day, yes, governments will come and they will invest. So for employers, for employees or companies, they should also prioritize the well-being of their workers, make the environment all-inclusive, non-judgmental approach, and offer flexibility for people who are juggling a few things, having difficulty in their lives, homeschooling and things like that. There's a lot to talk about, but I think we're almost run out of time. But the last word is that caregivers, you're doing a lot of work. God bless you. Look after yourself as much as you're looking after your loved ones.
Absolutely. Wow. Yes, we could go on for much longer because there's so much to, there's always so much to cover. So thank you to our guests today, Honorable David Nabwa and Dr. Shola Olowukere, and me standing in as your host this week, Angela Santiamar. Next week, we'll be talking about the stigma around mental health and how you seek help. So do join us at 4 p.m. East African time, 1 p.m. GMT next week. And yes, if you do want to be hosted on the show, please do check out the email address to contact bmhm@gpanreunification.org, and let's continue the discussion. Some say talk is cheap, but when it comes to these kind of matters, you can't speak about it enough, especially when we face so much stigma and people don't feel free to share what is going on with them. So thanks again to everybody watching us live or on replay. Thanks again to the guests, and join us again next week, 4 p.m. EAT, 1 p.m. GMT. Until then, take care of yourselves.
Bye.